Okay guys, I need to get this off my chest because last night was unreal. I'm Emma, 20 years old, just a college sophomore trying to scrape together some cash babysitting. It's supposed to be simple. Watch the kids, keep the house from falling apart, and head home with a paycheck. But when I was at the Carter's house, something happened that's got my heart racing even now. Mr. Carter James came home early, and he's married, completely off limits. But the way he looked at me, the way our conversation twisted into something more, it was electric, forbidden, and totally unexpected. I can't stop thinking about it, and I need to tell you every single detail. Stick with me, and please like and subscribe for more stories like this. The Carter house felt like a haven, all warm wood floors, exposed brick walls, and soft lighting that cast a golden glow over everything. I, Emma, sat curled up on their plush gray couch, my legs tucked under me, a home decor magazine splayed across my lap. The clock on the wall ticked toward 10:15 p.m., its steady rhythm blending with the faint hum of the baby monitor on the coffee table. Mia, 6, and Noah, 3, were fast asleep upstairs, their bedtime routine smoother than I'd expected. Mia had insisted on reading me 3 chapters of her favorite book about a dragon princess, her voice bubbling with excitement as she pointed out every colorful illustration. Noah, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, had only asked for water once before drifting off, his tiny snores crackling through the monitor. Babysitting for the Carters was one of my favorite gigs. Great kids, a cozy house, and a fridge I wasn't shy about raiding for a soda or 2. I glanced at my phone, the screen glowing in the dim room. James had texted earlier, dinner might run late, probably past midnight. Thanks for holding down the fort. His wife Sarah was at a conference in Chicago, leaving me in charge of their little kingdom. I didn't mind the late hours. The pay was solid, and their house was the kind of place you could sink into, with bookshelves stuffed with novels, architecture journals, and framed family photos that told the story of a life well lived. I stole a glance at one on the mantle. James, Sarah, Mia, and Noah at a pumpkin patch, bundled in scarves, their smiles bright against a crisp autumn sky. James looked different in the photo, less tired, his dark hair neatly combed, his green eyes sparkling with a warmth that seemed to reach through the frame. He was handsome, no question, with a strong jaw and a presence that filled a room. Not that I was supposed to notice. He was married and I was just the babysitter. Still, my mind wandered as I turned a page in the magazine, barely skimming the article about minimalist kitchens. I'd been babysitting for the Carters for 3 months, and James was hard to ignore. The way he'd linger when he handed me my pay, his easy smile when he talked about his kids, the way his voice softened when he said my name. It wasn't just that he was good looking, though. Let's be honest, he was. It was the way he seemed to see me, like I was more than just the college kid watching his children. I shook my head, scolding myself. Focus, Emma. You're here to work, not to crush on your employer. But the quiet of the house, the warm glow of the lamps, the faint cedar scent that seemed to linger in the air, it was easy to get lost in thought. I set the magazine down, stretching my arms over my head, my cropped sweater inching up to show a sliver of midriff. I caught myself wondering if I looked okay. My outfit was casual, high-waisted jeans, white sneakers, and the sweater, but I hoped it was presentable. I wasn't expecting James for hours, but the thought of him walking through the door made my stomach flutter. I grabbed my soda can, taking a sip to steady myself, when the jingle of keys at the front door snapped me out of my reverie. My heart gave a little jump, and I smoothed my hair, suddenly hyper-aware of every detail. The door swung open, and there he was, James Carter, looking exhausted but unfairly handsome. His navy suit was slightly rumpled, his tie loosened, the top button of his white shirt undone, revealing a hint of collarbone that I definitely shouldn't have noticed. His dark hair was mussed, like he'd been tugging at it during his drive home, and his green eyes caught the light as they landed on me, lingering just a beat longer than they should have. "Emma," he said, his voice low and warm, like he was genuinely glad to see me. "You're still up." I stood, flashing a smile as I leaned against the arm of the couch. "Gotta keep the castle safe, right? Mia's orders." I nodded toward the stairs where his daughter, this self-proclaimed princess, was dreaming of dragons. "You're back early," he chuckled, dropping his keys into a ceramic bowl by the door, the sound echoing in the quiet house. "Yeah, the client bailed early. Said he'd rather be home than debating floor plans over bad coffee and overpriced steak." He shrugged off his suit jacket, hanging it on the rack, and I couldn't help but notice the way his shoulders moved under his shirt, the fabric pulling tight in a way that was distracting. "Kids, okay?" "Perfect," I said, stretching again, my sweater inching up just a bit. I caught the way his gaze flicked to me before he quickly looked away, busying himself with loosening his tie further. Mia read me half her dragon book, and Noah only needed one water break. "I'm basically a superhero." He laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made my stomach flutter. "A superhero? You're a miracle worker, Emma." He headed toward the kitchen, glancing over his shoulder. "Come on, I need something to drink after that meeting. You want anything?" I followed, keeping my tone light. "I've got my soda," I said, holding up the can I'd grabbed earlier. "But I'll take a refill if you're playing host." He grinned, opening the fridge and pulling out another can. "Host, huh? I can manage that." He popped the can open and handed it to me, his fingers brushing mine as I took it. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through me, like a spark that lingered in the air. Our eyes met, and for a split second, the kitchen felt smaller, the space between us charged with something I couldn't name. "Thanks," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. I took a sip, leaning against the counter, trying to ignore the way my heart was racing. The kitchen was less pristine than the rest of the house, dishes stacked in the sink, a cereal box open on the island, crumbs scattered like evidence of a morning gone wrong. I raised an eyebrow, teasing, "So what's with the mess? Did Noah stage a cereal uprising?" James groaned, running a hand through his hair, making it even messier in a way that was unfairly charming. "You're calling me out already? That's all, Noah. He decided his dinosaur needed a cereal bath this morning. It was a disaster." I laughed, picturing the 3-year-old dumping cereal everywhere. "Okay, that's adorable, but you're still on notice, James." I emphasized his name, testing how it felt to say it. He'd asked me to call him James a few weeks ago, after I'd been babysitting for them long enough to feel like more than just a hired hand. It still felt personal, like I was stepping into dangerous territory. He turned, leaning against the opposite counter, his arms crossed in a way that made his shirt pull tight across his chest. "Bold, aren't you?" he said, but there was a spark in his eyes, like he was enjoying the banter. "You're gonna have to give me a break. Single dad mode is rough when Sarah's out of town." My heart twinged at the mention of his wife, a reminder of the line I couldn't cross. But I kept my smile in place, tilting my head. "Single dad for a weekend," I teased. "You're doing fine, but I'm keeping an eye on you." He raised an eyebrow, his smile turning playful. You're keeping an eye on me. Should I be worried?" "Maybe," I said, hopping up to sit on the counter, my sneakers dangling. I swung them slightly, feeling a surge of confidence. "Depends on how much trouble you're planning to cause." He laughed, shaking his head, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "You're trouble, Emma. I can tell." His voice was low, teasing, but there was something else. There's something that made my pulse quicken. He grabbed a glass from the cabinet and poured himself some water, but he didn't step back. Instead, he stayed close, leaning against the counter, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne mixed with the crisp scent of his shirt. I tilted my head, matching his energy. Trouble's not always a bad thing, you know. Keeps life interesting. He held my gaze, and the air between us thickened, like we were both aware of the line we were dancing around. "Interesting's one way to put it," he said, his voice quieter now. "You're not what I expected when we hired you." My heart beat a little faster, and I leaned forward slightly, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good, he said, his smile softening, his eyes locked on mine. Definitely good. I took another sip of my soda, trying to steady myself. He was married. I was the babysitter, but the way he was looking at me, like he was seeing me for the first time, made it hard to think straight. I needed to steer this back to safer ground. So, I said, forcing a lighter tone, how's the architecture world? Building any castles for Mia's kingdom? He chuckled, relaxing a bit, but he didn't move away. No castles yet, just office buildings and the occasional fancy house. It's less exciting than it sounds. He paused, taking a sip of his water, then added, but it keeps me busy. Too busy sometimes. I nodded, sensing the weight behind his words. I bet between work and the kids, you probably don't get much time to, I don't know, have fun. He looked at me, his expression unreadable for a moment, like he was weighing what to say. Fun, he said, almost like he was testing the word. Yeah, that's been in short supply lately. Sarah's always traveling for work, and I'm holding down the fort. It's a lot. My heart ached for him, but I kept my tone playful. Well, you're doing a great job. I mean, Mia's basically running a kingdom out there, and Noah's got his dinosaur army. You've got this. He smiled, but it was softer now, almost vulnerable. Thanks, Emma. That means more than you know. He hesitated, then added, it's nice having you around. The kids love you, and you make things easier. My cheeks warmed, and I looked down at my soda can, suddenly shy. Just doing my job, I said, but my voice was softer now, too. I glanced up, and our eyes met again, the air humming with something unspoken. I knew I should change the subject, but part of me didn't want to. Part of me wanted to see how far this could go, even though I knew it was wrong. Hey, he said, breaking the silence. Since you're calling me out on the kitchen, want to help me tackle it? I could use a hand, and you seem like you've got opinions on my housekeeping skills. I laughed, grateful for the shift in tone. Oh, I've got opinions, all right? Lead the way. We moved to the sink where the dishes were piled a little higher than I'd realized. I grabbed a sponge, and he took a dish towel, and we fell into an easy rhythm, me washing, him drying. It was mundane, but there was something oddly intimate about it. Standing side by side, our elbows brushing occasionally as we worked. You're not bad at this, I said, handing him a clean bowl. Maybe there's hope for you yet. He grinned, taking the bowl, his fingers grazing mine. High praise from the kitchen critic. I'll take it. We kept at it, the banter flowing easily. I teased him about the cereal crumbs, and he fired back about my fancy college habits, like drinking soda straight from the can instead of pouring it into a glass. It was light, playful, but every time our hands brushed or our eyes met, that spark flared again, making my heart race. I kept reminding myself, he's married, Emma. Don't get carried away. But it was hard when he was standing so close, his laugh warm and genuine, his presence filling the room. When the last dish was dried, he leaned against the counter, wiping his hands on the towel. Not bad for a team effort, he said, his eyes meeting mine. You're good company, Emma. My stomach fluttered, and I busied myself rinsing the sponge. You're not so bad yourself, I said, keeping my tone light. But don't let it go to your head. He laughed, shaking his head. Too late for that. We headed back to the living room, and I glanced at the clocky, 11:30 p.m. It was getting late, but I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Want to check on the kids? He asked, his voice casual, but with that same edge, like he was trying to keep things grounded. Yeah, good idea, I said, following him upstairs. The hallway was lined with more photos. Maya's first day of school, Noah's first birthday, James and Sarah at some fancy event, her in a sleek black dress, him in a tux. I pushed the image of Sarah out of my mind, focusing on the task at hand. We peeked into Mia's room first. She was sprawled across her bed, her dark curls fanned out on the pillow, her stuffed unicorn tucked under one arm. The moonlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow over her peaceful face. She's growing up too fast, James said quietly, almost to himself, leaning against the doorframe. Feels like yesterday she was Noah's age. I nodded, standing beside him, my shoulder brushing his for a brief moment. She's amazing. Told me she's gonna be a dragon tamer when she grows up. He chuckled, the sound low and warm. That sounds about right. She's got big plans. We moved to Noah's room, where he was curled up with his dinosaur, snoring softly. His room was a mess of toy cars and books, but there was something so sweet about the way he clutched his stuffed animal like it was his protector. James lingered in the doorway, watching him with the same tenderness, but there was a heaviness in his expression, like he was carrying more than he let on. "They're lucky to have you," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're a great dad." He glanced at me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us. "Thanks, Emma," he said, his voice soft. "It's not always easy, trying to be everything for them. Sarah's amazing, but she's gone a lot. Sometimes it feels like I'm doing it all alone." My heart ached for him, but I kept my tone light, trying to ease the tension. "You're not alone," I said, nudging his arm gently. "You've got Mia and Noah, and, a pretty awesome babysitter." He laughed, the sound breaking the heaviness in the air. "Yeah, you're not wrong about that." He looked at me, and for a moment I thought he might say something more, but he just smiled, gesturing toward the stairs. "Come on, let's head back down." We returned to the living room, and I grabbed my backpack, slinging it over one shoulder. The night felt different now. Heavier, like we'd crossed some invisible line. The air was charged with the weight of our conversation, the glances we'd shared, the moments where our hands had brushed. I knew I should leave, but part of me wanted to stay, to see what else might happen, even though I knew it was dangerous. James followed me to the door, grabbing my coat from the rack. "Here," he said, holding it out for me. I slipped it on, and his hands brushed my shoulders as he adjusted it, his touch lingering just a moment too long. When I turned, we were too close, and the air felt electric, like a storm about to break. "Thanks for tonight," he said, his voice soft, his eyes holding mine. "You're really something, Emma." My heart raced, and I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Anytime," I said, matching his tone. I stepped toward the door, but I couldn't resist one last tease, needing to lighten the moment before it consumed me. "Try to keep the kitchen clean next time, okay? I'm not your maid." He grinned, leaning against the door frame, his eyes never leaving mine. "No promises, but I'll see you next week." "Count on it," I said, flashing a smile as I stepped outside. The cool night air hit my face, but it did nothing to cool the warmth in my chest. I knew it was wrong that sparked between us. He was married and I was just the babysitter. But as I walked to my car, I couldn't shake the memory of his touch, the way his eyes had lingered on me, the weight of his words. It was a secret I'd carry, tucked away until the next time. Thanks for listening to my confession, guys. I hope you felt that spark as much as I did. If you loved this story, please like and subscribe for more.